go better known. Bang, bang.
After Cactus Jack got injured during a match with Big Van Vader on WCW Saturday Night in 1993, Dusty Rhodes wanted to bring Mick Foley back into the company as an even bigger babyface than what he was before, who was also out for revenge for the terrible hardships that he went through. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? It sounds like a story that just writes itself. According to Mick Foley's first book, Have a Nice Day, WCW began using writers around this time period to try and create more elaborate storylines. And these angles would include off-site vignette shoots that would end up becoming infamous during this era of World Championship Wrestling. So think along the lines of Vader's White Castle of Fear and the Beach Blast 1993 mini-movie. These writers, along with Dusty Rhodes and the wider WCW booking committee, came up with a story for Cactus Jack known as Lost in Cleveland. A story where a reporter went looking for Cactus Jack while he was out injured. And this is the subject of today's video. This Lost in Cleveland Cactus Jack video was requested by Patreon supporter Anthony Wicker. So thanks Anthony for the suggestion. To gain a full understanding of the Lost in Cleveland storyline, we have to understand how it came to be. There were two key players here, one being Cactus Jack obviously, and the other was Big Van Vader. You have to appreciate that Vader was a much different wrestler back in 1993. The guy was an absolute ruthless animal who didn't mind working stiff. He actually looked like he really enjoyed it. Big Van Vader was feared. Guys thought twice about wrestling the big man, and some guys outright refused to work matches with him. That's how he made his peers feel. He was so feared and he was so intimidating. Mick Foley, on the other hand, in many ways was the absolute perfect opponent for Vader. Vader liked to dish out punishment, and Mick Foley could seemingly absorb punishment without ever giving up. Cactus Jack had guts, and no matter how much this guy got hurt, he got right back up, sometimes with a grin on his face. And it was really the grit of Cactus Jack that made WCW fans warm up to him. Cactus Jack had entered WCW as a bad guy. He had an excellent match with Sting at Beach Blast 1992 where the championship was on the line, and even though Jack was unable to overcome the Stinger, the match itself was really fun to watch. Going up against Sting in the early 90s though means that you're a heel through and through. Young fans and casual fans weren't going to applaud Sting's opponents, even if the wrestler in question gives a great performance. But that's fine too. Sting made heels better, and the heels made Sting better. It worked both ways. Jumping forward a little, the heel Cactus Jack wanted to wrestle in Vader's team at the Clash of the Champions 22 Thunder Cage match, and in order to join the heel side for this cage bout, he'd have to defeat Paul Orndorff. Not to get too much into the Jack vs Orndorff feud, the two men had a street fight on the 10th of January 1993 episode of WCW Main Event, and the match ended when Vader and Harley Race interfered and attacked Cactus Jack. Jack came back out a little later and he attacked Vader, Orndorff and Race with a shovel, and so it looked like Cactus Jack was about to turn babyface. At the Clash of the Champions, Cactus Jack joined the babyface team in the Thunder Cage main event, completing his face turn and helping his partners Sting and Dustin Rhodes to defeat Vader, Orndorff and Barry Windham. Cactus actually got the pinfall win here too. The babyface turn was done, so WCW could eventually run a Cactus Jack vs Vader angle, but before getting there, Jack would again wrestle Paul Orndorff in a Falls Count Anywhere match at Super Brawl 3, and this one was another great Cactus Jack WCW match where Mick takes some brutal bumps. Jack defeated Orndorff, and don't worry, I'm going to come back to this match in a future video. The Falls Count Anywhere match at Super Brawl went a long way in making fans appreciate Mick Foley. As a heel, people would naturally cheer when Foley took punishment, but as a good guy, the bumps Cactus took were almost amplified thanks to fans feeling a certain amount of sympathy for Cactus Jack. It's kinda like the Mankind character years later. Fans seem to pay more attention to the ridiculous bumps Foley would take when Mankind was a good guy. This is also expected, though heels generally dish out more offense in a match, so this means Mick Foley as a babyface would have to take even more punishment in his matchups. Enter Big Van Vader, a man who is more than happy to give out that punishment. The most feared wrestler in WCW at the time and the WCW Heavyweight Champion. Mick was very eager to work with Big Van Vader, and he was also eager to build upon his recent babyface turn. The following quote comes from Mick Foley's first book, Have a Nice Day. I thought a series of matches with Big Van Vader would help the fans see me in a more sympathetic light. I laid out a scenario to Dusty Rhodes, one that culminated in a devastating injury. The Dream thought about it for a few minutes and then got a look on his face as if he had just had a major revelation. He started to speak, Dusty style, in his excited animated fashion. That's it, baby, and when Vader hurts you, you'll have amnesia. You'll go home, but you won't even know your family. He continued to speak, but all I could think was how outlandish the whole thing was and that it would never work. Nobody was going to believe amnesia. This was WCW, not Days of Our Lives. I was just about to speak up when Dusty said the magic words. We'll take you off the road for 4 months and we'll pay you. Foley ended up agreeing with Dusty Rhodes because Mick wanted some time off to be with his wife and son. Before this conversation though, Foley and Vader already had a television match. It happened on the 7th of March 1993 episode of Main Event, and this one doesn't get talked about as much as the other Vader vs Foley matches, but it's still worth watching. Mick Foley says that he has a copy of this very match completely unedited, and you may be wondering what exactly had to get cut out of this match and why did it need censored for television broadcast. Well, Mick says it was simply too violent for WCW Main Event. Mick asked Vader to swell his eye up a little and Vader suggested getting a little blood from Foley's nose. Mick agreed, and during the match, Vader began smashing Jack's face. When Vader didn't see any blood, he became what Mick called a man obsessed. The idea of swelling up Foley's eye went out the window as Vader continued trying to bust Foley's nose, and when a little blood eventually dribbled out, Vader remembered about Foley's eye and he began going to work on poor Cactus Jack once again. According to Mick's book, Eric Bischoff had to fight to get the match aired on television, and the match that Mick describes in his book is very different from the edited version that we saw on TV, so hopefully one day Mick will share the full matchup. The infamous WCW Saturday Night match aired on the 24th of April 1993, the one where Foley was supposed to get hurt so badly that he'd get amnesia, in storyline anyway. Foley decided that the best way to do this was to take a powerbomb from Vader on the exposed concrete floor, and Mick shared a little more about this decision in his book. Mick wrote, "Before leaving home, I wrote a note for Colette, Mick's wife. It was essentially a last will and testament instructing her on what to do in case things didn't turn out too well. Thank God she never had to read it. I hope you don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that the ramifications of this match were tremendous and the risk of serious injury was extremely high. As the willing participant of a powerbomb on the concrete floor, I was putting myself in a precarious predicament. I was essentially letting the most dangerous man in the business perform the sport's most dangerous move on a concrete floor. I'd seen Vader temporarily paralyze Joe Thurman with the move inside the ring that had some give to it. I had seen that powerbomb literally knock out others, and as mentioned earlier, I had seen some kids quit the company rather than risk the consequences of the powerbomb. Two Vader vs Cactus Jack matches took place on WCW Saturday Night 1 week after the other. The first saw Mick get absolutely pummeled by Vader, but Jack still won via countout. And the next week, on the April 24th episode, Cactus Jack would face Vader once again, and this was when the powerbomb took place. Quick side note too, there's a possibility that Mick got his matches mixed up in the book. If you watch the first WCW Saturday Night match, it really does look like Vader is trying to bust up Mick's face, and it plays out very much like how Mick described the main event match in Have a Nice Day. But Mick also says in his book that the edited match took place in Gainesville, Georgia. the same location as the main event tapings, while WCW Saturday Night, of course, was taped at centre stage. Who knows though, and who are we to doubt Foley? If he has the tape, then he has the tape. Mick said that he felt something was off that day and he was getting bad vibes around the arena. Dusty Rhodes and Vader tried to talk Mick out of the powerbomb spot that would take place later in the evening, but Foley felt that this was the only way to make things believable. It had to be the powerbomb. Foley suffered a legitimate injury after taking the bump, although he still says that Vader looked after him when delivering the powerbomb, and you can see Vader didn't completely slam Mick's back onto the concrete. Mick ended up getting hurt, but this ended up helping the overall storyline that Foley and Dusty were trying to tell. Mick was out, he banged his head so hard that he had to take time off, and the idea now was that Mick would make his triumphant return as an even bigger babyface, and he'd get his chance at revenge at a later date. While enjoying some time at home with his wife and son, Mick's phone rang, and on the other end was Tony Schiavone. Mick was advised previously that a series of vignettes would air that would build up to the return of Cactus Jack, but he was not prepared for what Schiavone was about to tell him. WCW had decided that there would be some humour mixed into the videos. Foley protested, saying that there was nothing really funny about a guy getting concussed, and Tony argued that a 12-week run of serious vignettes would end up turning people off. The decision was final, and a WCW representative was driving over to Mick's place to drop off the script for the Lost in Cleveland video series. Foley got the script and immediately he didn't like it. He knew it was bad and he knew his return wouldn't have nearly as much impact. Mick knew the director who was overseeing the project, and because Foley wasn't involved in the first few vignettes, he was able to see a video of the promos before they aired on TV, and Mick predicted that the vignettes would get cancelled long before the scheduled 12 weeks. Something that I've learned while uploading to YouTube is that everything in wrestling has a fan base. No matter how bad you may think something is, there's always a group of people who actually liked it. And that's fine. I'm sure there are people who enjoyed the Lost in Cleveland vignettes too, so I'm not going to rip into the promos, but rather we'll just look at them and see what happened. Those who haven't seen these yet can make up their own minds. Also, what you see here is what I could find in terms of quality. There may be quality dips here and there due to the WWE Network being really slow at uploading classic WCW content. But here it is. This is Lost in Cleveland. On the June 5th, 1993 episode of WCW Saturday Night, Tony Schiavone announced that Cactus Jack went to hospital after taking the powerbomb. He was sent home, and then he was sent to an institution for further observation. Schiavone says that a reporter has been sent out to check on the condition of Cactus Jack, and then we see Catherine White standing outside the institution. Catherine completely hams it up during this entire vignette series. Have a listen.
This is no ordinary hospital. Apparently, the physical effects of Jack's brutal beating at the hand.
Catherine learns that Cactus Jack is no longer at this location and he seems to be missing. Cactus is apparently suffering from some psychological problems, and his mental state is now a bigger concern than his physical state. A guy sitting on a bench overhears our reporter. He seems to be eating Cheetos with a toothpick, and the guy says he knows where Cactus Jack is. He's in Cleveland. The guy also says that Cactus Jack is in Atlantis and he's now a fish.
Atlantis. Underwater. He's got gills now.
And then it looks like Cactus Jack actually gets spotted. Catherine rushes over to find the guy shooting hoops, and this isn't Cactus Jack, it's a guy who thinks he's Jack Nicholson. Catherine gets frustrated and the first segment comes to an end. This was one of the promos Mick Foley saw on tape before it aired on TV, and it made poor Mick Foley's heart sink right into the ground. Catherine then shows up at the home of Cactus Jack, where his wife says she doesn't know where he is. Dusty Rhodes said that Mick's real wife Colette was too pretty to play the part here, and so they hired someone else to play the role of Cactus's wife. According to Mick Foley's first book, Colette was upset about this, but anyway, the actress here is having a hard time dealing with Cactus being away from home. For the brief time that Cactus did return after being at the hospital, Jack was apparently acting like someone completely different. And so the search continues. Catherine travels to Cleveland for the next vignette. Catherine says that many fans have contacted WCW reporting Cactus Jack sightings around America, from Jack being seen buying a Slurpee in a 7-Eleven in Bismarck, North Dakota, to touring the home of Elvis Presley in Memphis, Tennessee. It seems like Cactus Jack has been getting around quite a bit since leaving the institution. Catherine says that the most frequent reports WCW got were based around this very street corner in Cleveland, where Jack was seen hanging out with some homeless people. And so our brave reporter is going to try to find Cactus Jack in this dark alley where literal gunshots can be heard in the background. A group of guys laugh at the reporter when questioned about the whereabouts of Cactus Jack, but a guy named Swampy, who's sitting on the floor drinking from a brown paper bag, says that he actually knows Cactus Jack. For the sum of $50, Swampy says he'll call Catherine when he sees Cactus Jack again in the area. Just then, Catherine gets her handbag stolen, but someone throws it back to her. The segment ends with Catherine leaving the alley. In the next vignette, Swampy is with Catherine and apparently he knows where Cactus is. Swampy wants more money and Catherine says he'll get paid once she sees Cactus Jack, and Swampy says that she already did see him. It was Cactus who threw her handbag back in the previous vignette. Cactus Jack is then seen talking to a group of people and he's talking about the ocean and life at sea as if he was some sort of sailor. Catherine approaches Cactus and Cactus says he's not the man who Catherine is looking for. He says he's just a simple sailor with no name and Cactus Jack must look like him and nothing more. A lady by the name of Bang Bang is standing beside Cactus and Bang Bang makes Catherine back off as Jack goes into his makeshift home. Catherine says that she's found Cactus Jack, but Cactus Jack himself still seems lost. Catherine returns to Cleveland and she says that Jack's doctor advised her to bring someone from Jack's past to come visit him. This could help jog Cactus's memory and make him remember who he really is. Dustin Rhodes, poor Dustin Rhodes, he's here to try to help bring Jack back home. Catherine and Dustin overhear Jack talking about life at sea again, and when Dustin approaches Jack, Jack mistakes Dustin as a country singer who is very popular among his shipmates. Dustin reminds Jack that they teamed up together in the past, but Cactus can't recall any kind of personal connection with Dustin Rhodes. Jack instead wants Dustin to sing a few of his famous songs. Bang Bang gets up in Catherine's face and Catherine says that Bang Bang is hiding something, and then Dustin does something that momentarily brings back the old Cactus Jack.
Jack, don't you remember? Bang, 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 bang!
We think Dustin is going to get a beating, but he only gets his hat stolen. No, I'm serious. Bang Bang's goons only stole Dustin's hat and they left afterwards. Catherine says that they'll return during the daytime, and the next vignette would turn out to be the final one. Catherine goes back to the alley at nighttime, and this time she's brought Jack's wife along. Well, the lady who played the role of Jack's wife. And also, Jack's son Dewey is also here. Swampy shows up wearing a shirt and tie, and Swampy says that Bang Bang and Cactus have moved to a new camp because Catherine has been snooping around too much. Swampy took Jack's advice, he cleaned up his act and he got himself a job, so good for Swampy I guess. But it looks like the search for Cactus Jack is going to continue outside of Cleveland. But then... and I'm not joking, Swampy says he'll take Catherine to see Jack. Swampy wants to help Cactus. Bang Bang is the one that wants Jack to run away, but Swampy feels like he owes it to Jack to get some help and get him away from this lady who's been taking over his life. You couldn't make this stuff up. Swampy brings Catherine, Dewey and Colette to Jack's new place of residence, and Jack doesn't recognise his wife nor his son. Colette wants Cactus to come home, but Cactus says he is home, and the segment ends with Cactus and Bang Bang walking away while Colette and Dewey also leave without Jack. And that's it. The storyline was then thrown out. Dusty Rhodes said that Jim Herd walked in one day and he told Dusty that the Lost in Cleveland videos were to stop immediately. Herd didn't like what he saw, and so, just like that, the whole thing was scrapped. In Foley's book, Mick says it was Eric Bischoff who pulled the plug, so who really knows what happened? Regardless, Lost in Cleveland ended early and we never got to see what happened. Swampy fans still wonder to this very day if he's still working in his office job. The vignettes were also quite costly. Dusty said one vignette cost around 100 grand, which seems like an astronomical price for such low quality promos, but yeah, it was a big waste of time and the story was never properly completed. The rivalry with Vader, however, would continue. Mick returned at Clash of the Champions 24 to attack Vader after his match with the British Bulldog. And on the next episode of Saturday Night, the whole amnesia thing wasn't mentioned at all. Cactus said he wants a shot at Vader, but before that match happened, Cactus had a match with Yoshi Kwan at Fall Brawl 93. With this victory, Cactus would face Vader at Halloween Havoc, and Vader defeated Mrs. Foley's baby boy in a Texas death match. By this point, Foley was fed up with WCW. A backdrop spot where Vader landed on Mick with all his body weight was enough to make Foley try to cash in his Lloyds of London insurance policy and give up wrestling for good. When the insurance company wouldn't pay out, Mick continued wrestling for WCW. Mick admitted in Have a Nice Day that he was intentionally trying to end his own career at Halloween Havoc 1993. And that was the Mick Foley Lost in Cleveland storyline. There's also the stuff with Mick losing his ear in a match with Vader, but we'll talk about that another time. And so Lost in Cleveland would end up being something that Mick Foley would rather erase from his storied career, and it's a great example of how wacky WCW was during this time period. I'll leave you with a quote from Mick's book in regards to the end of the Lost in Cleveland project. It wasn't Dusty's fault. Like me, Dusty compared a lot of his ideas to movie scenarios, and I think his real career goal was to direct in Hollywood. The idea could have worked, but this was WCW's first attempt at using writers, and they let the writers take the whole thing in a ridiculous direction. Hey, I wanted to believe in the project too, especially when I showed up on the set and saw the elaborate scenery, props and hordes of extras. Still, all the same, if you do have a copy of these rare sketches, resist the urge to watch them. Instead, please, if you have any respect for me at all, burn it now, to preserve the sanctity of my reputation for future generations.
He's not on a team or a member of a gang. He's Cactus Jack.